Hey, welcome to the shop. Grab a stool. If you spend enough time turning wrenches, you really start to see patterns. And today's explainer is all about the absolute worst pattern of them all. We're looking at the most preventable yet most fatal engine killer out there, engine oil sludge. Look, as a mechanic, I can fix a broken belt, I can replace a snapped chain, no problem. But sludge? Sludge is a whole different beast. It's a disease.
Oil sludge does not kill engines loudly. It kills them slowly, silently, and permanently. Let me tell you a quick story to show you what I mean. A few years back, I had a Chrysler 2.7-liter V6 towed right into my bay. Now, the owner swore up and down the engine was running perfectly the day before. No warning lights, no excessive smoke, nothing. Then suddenly, cruising down the highway, it just completely seized up. Dead. When I finally opened it up, the oil pickup screen was entirely blocked by this massive, rock-hard chunk of sludge. It was literally the mechanical equivalent of a massive, sudden heart attack.
So, let's do a quick autopsy here. Take a look at the left side. That is a healthy engine. Notice how the internals are this beautiful golden, honey brown color. You can clearly see every distinct valve train component. Now, look at the right. That right there is a sludge-ruined engine. It's completely buried under this dark brown, almost black, mayonnaise-looking gel. Gross, right? That thick tar completely stops any lubrication from reaching the moving parts. The stakes here are huge, and understanding this visual difference is really the very first step to saving your own vehicle.
So, here's what we're going to cover today. We're looking at the anatomy of a sludge death, the chemistry behind this oil gel, silent starvation, and those tricky deceptive sensors, how we actually diagnose hidden sludge, safe recovery versus those super dangerous flushes, and finally, my personal mechanics prevention checklist.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the anatomy of a sludge death.
Picture your engine's oil galleries like your own arteries, and the oil pump is the heart. Clean, highly pressurized oil is the lifeblood that stops metal-on-metal contact across hundreds of fast-moving parts. Sludge? Well, sludge is the plaque that systematically clogs those arteries. And the most absolutely crucial point is right here, 5 seconds. That is literally all it takes to do massive, irreversible damage. When you do a cold start on a sludged engine, the oil pump tries to pull up this thick, freezing gel, but it can't. The pump actually cavitates, meaning it just spins in a vacuum. So for those first 5 to 10 seconds, your camshafts and bearings are grinding completely dry, metal on metal. The crazy thing is, most of the permanent wear your engine ever suffers happens right in this incredibly brief little window.
So how do you even know this is happening? Well, you gotta listen to your engine. If you turn the key and hear this high-pitched ticking, or maybe a chain-slopping rattle, but then that noise magically clears up once the engine gets warm, pay attention. That is your hydraulic lifters literally screaming for oil. They're being starved by hidden sludge. It is a major early warning sign that your engine is struggling to breathe, way before total failure actually sets in.
But get this, sludge doesn't just block the flow of oil, it actually acts like a thick winter coat. Motor oil doesn't just lubricate, it's absolutely vital for cooling your engine too. Sludge traps all that heat inside. This insulation causes extreme localized hotspots. Just as an example, turbocharger oil feed lines can easily push past 250 degrees Celsius. When sludge traps that kind of heat, the oil breaks down instantly right at the turbo, seizing it up way before the overall cooling system fails. A lot of the time, engine overheating is actually a lubrication failure in a really good disguise.
Moving on to section 2, the chemistry of oil gel. A lot of people think sludge is just dirt blowing in from the road. Nope, it's a full-on, fundamental chemical transformation where free-flowing liquid oil actually turns into a destructive, semi-solid matrix. Let's walk through the 4 stages of this breakdown. First up, high heat causes oxidation, which attacks the oil's hydrocarbon chains. Second, contamination kicks in. Stuff like blow-by gases, unburned fuel, and condensed water mix in. Third is polymerization, where all these molecules link up into a sticky gel. And finally, repeated engine heating and cooling literally bakes this gel into a hard, permanent varnish.
I really want to pause on that third step for a second, because it perfectly highlights the real issue, polymerization. It's a chemical bonding process. Once your oil's protective additives finally deplete, those oxidized oil molecules literally cross-link with the contaminants. They join hands, transforming your vital liquid lubrication into this stubborn, sticky paste. It's not just dirty oil, it is a total chemical failure of the oil's actual structure.
And guess what makes this happen way faster? Your daily driving habits. Short trips are absolutely brutal on a motor. If your morning commute is just 5 minutes down the road to the store, your engine oil literally never reaches 100 degrees Celsius. That means the water vapor and unburned fuel trapped inside your crankcase never get hot enough to boil off and evaporate. They just sit in there, mixing with the oil and accelerating that chemical breakdown much, much faster than if you were out doing long highway drives.
All right, part 3. Silent starvation and deceptive sensors.
Okay, we need to completely debunk the false security of that dashboard oil pressure light. Thanks to Bernoulli's law, as that sludge narrows the oil passages, the oil pressure actually spikes right before the blockage. Your sensor reads that high pressure and happily tells your computer, hey, everything is totally fine in here. But past that blockage, the actual flow volume is basically zero. Your bearings are literally starving to death, but your sensor is completely deceived by that thick sludge pushing up against it.
Oh, and I absolutely have to bust a huge myth right here. Pushing your service intervals way out just because you bought the expensive oil, that is a total recipe for disaster. Listen to me. Synthetic oil is not a magical, invincible shield against sludge. Yes, for sure, it handles extreme heat better than conventional oil, but it still suffers from fuel dilution, its chemical additive packages still deplete over time. If you neglect the maintenance interval, synthetic oil is going to turn into sludge just like anything else. So let's jump into Section 4. Diagnosing the hidden sludge. So how do we actually catch it before your engine is toast? Well, as mechanics, we don't guess, we verify. First, we do a super simple visual check right under the oil filler cap. If we see black paste on the cap, we've got a problem. But to go deeper, we snake a borescope camera down the spark plug holes to spot early gel buildup hiding in the galleries. We also totally bypass those deceptive electronic sensors and run a real mechanical oil pressure test. If we see that pressure drop below 10 psi at a hot idle, we instantly know there's a critical restriction choking the system. And finally, we look to the lab.
Professional laboratory oil analysis is the absolute gold standard for detecting contamination way before mechanical failure happens. This table shows us exactly how to read a spectrographic report. If we see high iron, your camshaft or crankshaft is wearing down. Spikes in lead or copper? That means your soft bearing material is literally melting away because the oil film collapsed. High glycol indicates coolant is mixing with the oil, which, trust me, creates sludge incredibly fast. Basically, the lab report gives us a crystal ball right into your engine's internal health.
Which brings us to Section 5. Safe recovery versus dangerous flushes.
Okay, so let's say we actually find sludge. What's the fix? I cannot stress this enough. Do not, under any circumstances, pour aggressive chemical solvent flushes into a severely sludged engine. The dangerous method on the left might seem like it dissolves the sludge, but actually it breaks it off in large chunks. Those chunks drop right into the oil pan and instantly seize the oil pickup screen. Your engine will literally die in minutes. The safe method on the right is all about gradual recovery. We use high detergent oils and do sequential, very short interval oil changes, say every 2,000 kilometers. This slowly and safely dissolves the sludge layer by layer, carrying it away right into the filter.
Finally, Section 6, the Mechanics Prevention Checklist. Look, the absolute best treatment is just not getting the disease in the first place, right? So let's start with a tiny part most people totally ignore. The PCV valve. That stands for positive crankcase ventilation. It takes those nasty blow-by gases and moisture out of your engine block and routes them safely into the intake to be burned off. If this little $10 plastic valve gets blocked, crankcase pressure spikes and massive oil contamination starts immediately. I'm telling you, ignoring a $10 PCV valve is the absolute fastest way I know to completely trash a $10,000 engine. So, here's your playbook, the simple, actionable checklist of daily and monthly habits you need. Every month, just take 5 seconds to unscrew your oil cap and look for that dark gel. Swap out that PCV valve every 30 to 60,000 kilometers. Never ever exceed the manufacturer's recommended oil change interval. Try to combine your errands so the engine gets hot enough to boil off the moisture. If you drive a turbo, let it idle for just a minute or two before shutting it down so the oil doesn't bake inside the lines. And if you have a coolant leak, fix it right away before it turns your oil into pudding. As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. Oil sludge isn't just some minor maintenance issue, it is a fatal lubrication failure. Silence under the hood does not mean you're safe, and the damage this stuff causes is completely irreversible. So I gotta ask you, will you take control and change your oil? Or are you going to let the oil change your engine's fate? Thanks for joining me in the shop today. Keep those fluids clean, and I'll see you next time.